Test, 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 test. There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. Perfect. What's going on? Good morning. Good morning. All right. What's going on, Major, Jackie, David, Jalen? Thank you guys for showing up this morning or this afternoon. Yes, yes, this is the edgy episode. Welcome to this morning. We are back. Dungeoneers Pack live. Sorry, we're having a little bit of issue with microphone message things. Yes, Megan, Stefan, thank you guys for showing up. Yeah, this is the edgy episode of Dungeoneers Pack Live. For those that haven't been here, or those again that have been, Dungeoneers Pack Live is a weekly live stream where we recap the latest news in D&D and discuss topics important to you guys, players at the table. Those that don't know me, my name is Josh. Thank you for guys for showing up. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about playing evil characters or being in a party with evil characters. But before we get started, let's go over some D&D news. D&D has been really, really dry this last actually couple weeks. They're looking like they're gearing up for the big releases back to back. So September we're getting Wild Beyond the Witchlight, the Fae adventure. It'll probably be the first adventure book I will cover on the channel because it actually has player options on there. So expect to see videos on that. Then it's followed by Fizzband's the Dragon book, which will have nothing but dragon everything. New dragon the stats, new ways to interact with dragons, and then also player options that'll, I'm assuming, are included in the new Dragonborn and also Dragon Feats, Dragon Spell. And then it's followed by the Strixhaven book the month after. So that's the big releases back to back, one book every month. But there hasn't been any news really coming out from WotC besides them gearing up and doing their promo stuff. Except Kobold Press. This week they dropped their Kickstarter for Tome of Heroes. So as you can tell already, they've already met their goal. They were way past their goal. There's still a whole month left. This is a 5th edition expansion featuring 50 new subclasses. I'm assuming some of them may be reprints from their Midgar Heroes campaign, and then maybe some of their what is it? They have a whole supplement adding new spells into the game too. They had featured subclasses, though I'm assuming going to be some of that stuff tier 2, and probably some new stuff. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah, 50 new subclasses. They're also adding races, 10 races, cat folk to the geared folk. Some of this stuff is also featured in their Midgar campaign. So some of this may be reprints if you have the book already, but if not, it's going to be brand new stuff. For what I remember, Gearforge are their version of Warforge. Just a little bit different, a little bit broader. Hopefully they add some balance changes and maybe up the power level of some of the subclasses, because from what I remember, I have the Midgard Player's Handbook. Some of the subclasses are not as strong. They're a bit weaker on the side, even compared to the Player's Handbook. Yeah, it's interesting that, but I'm definitely going to be backing this one. 50 new subclasses is a lot, and there's generally a lot of good ideas coming out of Kobold Press. And yeah, you can see the different tiers. They're going to have a digital virtual tabletop version. Still no D&D Beyond. Still no D&D Beyond support, but they're still going to do Roll20 Fantasy Grounds. I don't know this one, but I'm Boundary. And also PDF and then a physical copy. In terms of stretch goals, they are knocking it out of the park. If it says a little bit allowed under open gaming license, yep, pretty much all. You're not going to see Artificer in this thing, but you're going to see all the basic classes. D&D news, having looked at Chronicles of Wagadu, I just learned I have not heard of that one. Other than that, yeah, they're knocking it out of the park. They're hitting their stretch goals pretty hard. Their next one is to add a Dune Walker and Frost Elf sub races, so more races and lineages for players to choose elf. And that's pretty much it. There really is no big D&D news at all. I think we're probably not going to hear anything like special or new until probably towards the end of Strixhaven's release, or maybe after Strixhaven drops. That's what my assumption is. Um, they're just gonna ramp up all the promo for those 3 books. Strixhaven drops, and then maybe towards Christmas time, we're gonna hear, "Oh, hey, look, we're doing a new book," and they'll announce the book that's gonna come in early spring. Yeah. So yeah. Other than that, let's jump into it. We're gonna be talking about evil characters. So we're gonna go into your guys' answers for the question of the week. Question of the week. Okay, so question of the week was, what is your experience play with having an evil player character in your game? So what I was looking for is like either you playing an evil character or somebody in your party is playing an evil. And you guys gave me some great responses. Prophet Isaiah said, "I'm currently DMing a game where my wife's character is pretty evil, but she's playing it pretty well so far. She's helpful to the party and doesn't contradict anything the party wants to do, but she's obviously got some unknown selfish motivation for doing so, and she's known for the rest of the party to be a worshiper of Baal. They've worked at keeping your friends at close and your enemies closer kind of relationship as good as the good members of the party are trying to figure out what she's really up to before making any direct action. My wife is making sure that her character's homicidal tendencies are always directed against the party's enemies. It's working out pretty well so far, and the good evil conflict with the party isn't causing division between the players, but giving the group some interesting dynamics and roleplay." So yes, this hits on something I will get into a little bit later, but yeah, playing evil is very, very hard, and Prophet Isaiah's wife is doing a really good job of making sure that her evil character is working with the party. And I will get more into that, because that is a huge, huge thing to do when playing an evil character. Augusto, that I played one myself in a one shot. It was really fun. She was a fiend warlock from a noble family, real spoiled kid vibes, not the edgy actually. Traded service to an archdevil for the promise of a cure for mother's disease, and she ended up enjoying the warlock's powers that came with the service. Yep, that's a perfectly other good way to do it. Playing an evil character, not necessarily having an evil personality, but still doing evil deeds with a friendly person. All right, Robin. I was running a game where the party was trapped on a magical island. They stumbled onto a wizardy tower along the coast and decided to investigate. Inside, they were ambushed by barrel goblins. After the goblin leader apologized and asked them to them work something out. The goblins turned out to be refugees who stumbled onto the island and were barely surviving, children included, and the druid and sorcerer pulled in Anakin and slaughtered them all. As I watched in horror, the party finished the tower dungeon. Spotted giant plant. The session ended and we never played that campaign again. All right, so this is not so much about those characters being evil, they're just committing evil acts. For goblins, they probably should go watch the goblin video. But yeah, evil acts can often derail a campaign, and you can tell it ended that campaign because it did evil stuff. Jalen said, for me, there's a fine line between evil and just downright jerk. I've seen a lot of tables outright ban evil characters, seeing it as a taboo and an excuse to be hindrance to the party of heroes saving the realm. I have no problem playing or running evil characters. Currently, I'm running a Curse of Strahd game with peace, atrocities, bit of a macabre side, ranging from tasting blood on a corpse to digging up graves to look cool stuff. He brings up a very, very big point on regards to how players approach evil and playing evil. I will get into that in just a second, but that is part of the bigger problem of why evil characters tend to not work. We have a very skewed view of what playing an evil character is in a game of heroes. So, Samantha said, first time playing, there was a guy in a group who wasn't necessarily evil, but he definitely wasn't a team player. I was a ranger and had a panther animal companion, which he tried to kill for no reason. He was always doing stuff that wasn't in the group's best interest. It wasn't great. He basically broke the group, and we cuts off. But again, disruptive behavior. Can all completely derail the game, and that's an issue with evil characters or players playing evil characters. They tend to do stuff that deep. Kel. Oh, what's going on, Eric? Thanks for dropping in. Kel said they should have locked in reasons to cooperate. Otherwise, it's harder to trust that things stay reasonable. I generally don't allow evil characters, though I most often play with students and my kids so it seems more fitting to promote decency. Doesn't mean they can't murder hobo a few challenges if those exhibit. Yeah, that playing evil characters with younger players, nothing wrong against younger players, but in general, our views of evil and our understanding of evil characters changes as we gain more experience. So, so the more obviously kids grow up, we go to become adults, they get a better comprehension of what an evil character is, in a sense of what it means in a game of heroes, in a cooperative setting. And then we got Black Magic and a friend, and I played some evilish characters. We were the ones leading the group, so for the most part, they didn't really do anything to stop or change us. Everyone, then they would like, that's not cool, and then we'd be like, oh my bad. Right? Then see what we saw on the Discord. We had a couple of answers in the Discord. So, Big Penny Pusher, I have a confession to make. I was the evil character in my campaign, and I suppose this isn't exactly what the question is asking, but I feel that maybe this would be valuable to it. I was an evil PC like twice, and both times it went well because I was only evil to people outside the party and stayed within my character's boundaries. But on the side of having an evil PC, a lot of the time they are also just out to get the NPC. Fun too. I like playing a good character being swept up by other PC actions, having to think about my character would actually do in that situation. Penny brings up a huge point. This right here. It was doing evil to the people outside of the party and stayed within my character's boundaries. That is a big, big, big thing she brought up, and I will expand on this point in just a second. But yes, most of the time when you play an evil character, you need to aim those evil actions towards the enemies, not at your other party members. And get into it in just a second. And then Adrian, one of my players in my game and mod in the Discord, he brought up some perfect good information regarding evil characters because we've experienced this in our home game. So from a DM standpoint, if we were on the same page and it fits with the character and objectives, I see no issue. I wouldn't allow a character to go evil just because they think it's an idea. As a player, I have played a character who got sucked into an assassin's guild due to my halfling wrong person. The DM for the game actually had a plan and wanted to incorporate these kinds of scenarios. After each of my kills, my alignment would shift in a certain direction or stay the same if I was able to justify my action. All right. So, what does it mean now? Let's get to the into it. So, we're gonna go over what exactly the problems of playing evil characters are before we can actually give actual advice. So these are very common things that happen whenever players play evil characters, and the reason why they get banned straight up at the table. Eric asks, "How do you feel about neutral characters that take a neutral stance but proceed as evil by other players? Simply awful good option." Anytime you have a player playing in direct opposition to the party, whether regardless of the alignment. So this is just in general. So if you have a party of evil characters and they have a lawful good character, or they have a party of neutral, and then you have a lawful good, or vice versa, you have one evil, lawful good. The biggest thing, and I will go into this a little bit later, is your character needs to find ways to work with the party. Period. Your alignment and your action should not be a detriment of the party because it is in the grander metagame, not necessarily in the story, the metagame. You're sitting at a table with hopefully friends or other people to play a collaborative experience. You should make your character designed to work with the party, period. It's not that you can't have tension. It's just your character needs to be in that group for a reason. Then this is a very, very session zero stuff. You need to design your character to be there for a specific reason, to work with the party to accomplish the goal. Whether the group's end goals or reasons for those end goals are different is where I think tension should step, but not necessarily be in opposition of each other. And I'll have some examples in just a second. So, but Eric brings up a point, and allow me to bring up a point: inter-party conflict between players and not characters. So when you have players or characters playing that are direct opposition to each other in their alignment or in their personalities, depending on how you guys table addresses alignment or characters, um, that inter-party conflict can go out and become player versus player conflict. And it really depends on how, obviously, one, how players approach their character. Obviously, some players are able to distance themselves and they understand that their character is a character and is not an aspect of them or isn't them. And there's other players that nothing wrong with this style of play, but their character is a bit more of a self-insert. It is them in in a fantasy world. They're very tied to it. Um, so when a player that plays an evil character does an evil act to the player or the character, the player will take offense to it. So solving this, obviously, session zero, big thing. DMs and groups need to decide level of PvP is going to be allowed in the game. Um, our group, and from personal experience, there's only been one instance where PvP between two characters, an evil line character and then a group of good characters, happened, and it was at the climax of that campaign where it was our last session, and it made total sense. We were playing a reskin version of Curse of Strahd in the Magic the Gathering setting of Innistrad. One of our players was playing an evil line character who was devoted to the Eldrazi. Eldrazi are like this Eldritch Horror, Cthulhu-like monsters that come from outside of the plains and come infest the plains and eat up all the magic from the plane. My character was a good aligned barbarian working for the church. We've drugged this character along because he was the only magical player or the magical character in our group. So this prisoner we had to bring along to help us solve this issue. Was working behind the scenes trying to get his Eldrazi god into the plane. So it culminated into character eventually getting an aspect of that god into the plane, while the rest of us managed to fight it off, and then eventually had to fight that player's character off. The rest of the party was dead. I was a one-on-one after that point. But what caused us to work for our players? One, there was no inter-party conflict in terms of player between player because one, we established and understand and built a sense of trust between the play group and understood that these are just characters. These aren't the players. These aren't aspects of the players going in. It takes time to do that as a solution. You have to build a level of trust with. Yeah, inter-party conflict between players and not characters is one reason why players will or DMs will just flat out ban evil characters in the group. Other reason, working against the party goals. This is probably the number one reason why evil characters always get banned at tables. They work against the party's goals. They always do something to disrupt another player's actions, stealing from another player, killing important NPCs just because they can, because it's quote unquote evil. And which will eventually leads to disrupting actions that derail the campaign. They will continue to do stuff that doesn't let the campaign progress. They will continue to do something that won't allow the other player to shine, or they just keep doing disruptive things that just make the game ultimately fun, and then the campaign just ends up ending. So these are other reasons. Is there any other reasons you guys have seen why evil characters are problems at tables and why they get banned? The biggest thing I'm seeing is that the disruptive actions are an excuse to murder hobo. Or just to steal magic items from other players and NPCs, just constantly just doing what is perceived as evil, regardless of what the alignment is. A lot of players tend to focus on evil and not whether it's lawful or chaotic. Eric said from Fridays, pro tip: when you have an inter-character conflict, solve it with an actual player versus player combat. Be sure to get everyone to sign waivers before handing out the hammers and knives. Yes. Mortal Kombat. Kidding. So, exactly what it will we're gonna be talking about evil. What exactly is evil? So, evil in the context of Dungeons and Dragons. So, obviously, there is this alignment system that's been with the game since the beginning. And as you could tell with fifth edition, it's very much starting to get pushed away, and as it doesn't really. There's a big contingency with alignment, and a lot of it is attributed because it doesn't with modern game design, it doesn't fit with the philosophy because it really dictates certain negative aspects of like what people are based off of just what they are, not what their actions. So obviously, with more sensitive topics like when it comes to race, certain like humanoid creatures or humanoid characters that are playable, like orcs and like I said, goblins earlier, drow, etc. They are evil just because of what they are, so their alignment is evil, period. Um, alignment. I can talk about this alignment more in another day, but players' view on evil in terms of D&D alignment is a big issue, and that's why you see it steering away. I think that's why evil itself in the game has become a problem at the tables. Um, but to quote Wreck-It Ralph Zangief, he says a specific line to Ralph at the beginning of the game: "Just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you're a bad guy." Um, and like I said, you're an evil hero, but you're not a villain. In the context of D&D as a player collaborative game, at the end of the day, your character is a hero, regardless of if they're evil. Evil in the context of a hero doesn't necessarily mean evil, and it's probably the wrong word to actually use. Your character's selfish. They have a selfish goal to get to their get to their reward. They need the party to get to that goal. They're going to work with the party. Biggest prime examples of characters that are like this are Magneto and Venom from Marvel Comics. Um, while in other stories, this evil character, the evil hero, may be the villain of the story, but in the story you guys are playing, they are a part of the hero. They are Venom now working with Spider-Man to defeat Carnage. They are now Magneto working with the X-Men to defeat Apocalypse. They are in the opposite position because their goals align. And again, evil is the wrong word. It's very much selfish. To correlate this with like Magic the Gathering, there is the five color mana system, but each of them have a differing offer different characteristics and personality. Um, black color black is normally associated with evil, but in reality, a lot of the characters are it's a selfish need, a selfish goal, and selfish actions to achieve that goal. Doesn't necessarily mean they're 100% evil. It's just normally selfish actions are in direct opposed to selfless actions, which is a trait of a hero. But in the context of a group collaborative game, that still can work to hero. Yeah, and then Eric brings up a good point. MCU Iron Man could started out as an evil villain, as evil, and that is very much true. He was a very selfish character with personal goals until he had something that directly changed his view on making war machines, and eventually had to work to become a hero. And actually, it was a 10-year progress to get him to the point in game. Um, Stephen Harris, you can have an evil character whose motivation is to keep another member of the party safe. They still selfishly. Yep. There's a lot of ways you could approach playing evil character. A lot of it is just it's not so much that they're a traditional villain evil. They are really just selfish in their aims and their goals and how they achieve it. Um, even then, I could say in a group of evil characters, say you guys are playing an evil campaign or neutral. You guys kind of have very the dastardly rogues. You guys are doing like maybe say you guys are playing a bounty hunter campaign where everybody's like a Han Solo, Boba Fett type of mercenary group, and you guys are kind of band together, or a Suicide Squad, like for example, for something a little bit more recent. And then you have the one player playing the Lawful Good Paladin that works directly opposed to the party. In that scenario, the Lawful Good Paladin is evil. The player plays him to the law to work against the party. In that scenario, that player is evil. Um, biggest thing is when it comes to alignment, you're in doing these things. Make sure you're working with the party. So Okay, so here's going to be some solutions, the actual nitty gritty of this bit. Okay, so biggest solution is you need to build trust with the party. Period. This is how you kind of solve the issue of playing an evil character. Um, it is a problem. Largely a problem because one, it involves in character interaction and player interaction, out of game interaction. So build trust. You need to do this in and out of the character. How do you establish much trust? Basic thing. Session zero's big thing. Um, but very, but it's not just session zeros at the beginning of the game. It's session zeros continuously throughout the game to establish a set of boundaries and rules. Um, Playing an evil character, players may overstep bounds from time to time because their misinterpretation of what evil is. And again, your character isn't necessarily an evil villain. They are an evil hero, selfish hero doing acts that for their own selfish goals. Um, but building trust, continuously talking when a problem arises to establish boundaries. Session zero on throughout the campaign is going to be one thing. Obviously, you're going to build trust with your party the more you play with them. Um, Luckily, with my group, I've been playing with the same group of guys, so almost every campaign we've had, there's one evil character now, and it works with the dynamic with our group because obviously, if everybody is too good and there isn't an inter-party conflict to kind of build the tension on the characters' motivations, um, to do eventually to the end goal, they're gonna have the same set of same path of a resolution every time a conflict comes up. While certain situations that's should be fine. It's just easy. Um, you don't build a good story at times if the resolution between killing the main bat, like killing a bad guy or keeping him alive, get information out of him, or keeping him alive to make him your minion, um, provide better options versus the one option if your guys are the good guys, kick down the door, beat him up, turn him in. So that's why evil characters help provide greater options of choices with the scenario. Um, biggest thing: not commit evil acts against the party. This is huge. Playing an evil character obviously is going to lend itself to your character as a player making choices that are not necessarily kosher in terms of what exactly it is. But you'll get mostly a free pass if you do it to the NPCs and mainly enemies. You don't do this willy nilly to every. You don't go around motorhoeing, killing every NPC just because you're evil. Um, but you also don't go around stealing everything and steal all your stuff from the party, magic items and gold from them. You don't try to kill them, steal from them, or do anything evil to them. You need to commit evil acts against enemy NPCs. But also there's a caveat. Obviously, don't do this to every single one. It's playing evil. Yeah, exactly, Eric. If like Venom, eat bad guys, not friends. Um, and that even more to this though, there is nuance to this, obviously, because there's lawful evil, chaotic evil, neutral evil. You're playing these different sort of alignments. Lawful evil, they are going to follow the law and use the law and use a structure to commit evil acts. They themselves are not going to murder spree, kill people. And in fact, they were probably set up to. They're most likely probably the least to get somebody killed, unless it's like they're the ones that are going to use I guess we could say like a Lex Luthor example, or they're going to use the law itself to hurt you financially, and remove things from you that no in the long run will hurt you. They're willing to play the long game. Lawful evil characters are probably the safest bet to play an evil character in your group. Say that as a bit of advice. Um, but they themselves are using the rules to using rules and structure to do evil acts. In comparison to chaotic evil. Obviously, these are your jokers. These are these characters that don't fit within the bounds. They're harder to pull off in a group of generally good aligned players, but it's not impossible. But it's also one of those things that has to be done done in a way where you have a bit of self control as a player, not necessarily as a character. Obviously, one of the examples that was brought up, Prophet Isaiah saying that his wife's character had murderous tendencies, but was still trying to objectively do this other other NPCs and enemies, and not necessarily against players. And that is perfectly classic closest, a really good example of playing someone that has chaotic evil tendencies and align maybe an alignment, but not necessarily is gonna be working against the party to constantly destroy. Mainly when you have a chaotic evil character, a player wants to do disruptive things. You don't need to do disruptive things. You don't need to prove that your character's evil all the time. You only need to do it a couple times where it makes sense. Maybe, for example, you guys are interrogating a enemy, and obviously you're going to go into the torture route when you're doing interrogation. Maybe they go a little too far in the torture. Um, Not necessarily killing the guy, but to the point where the party's like, okay, yeah, that's enough. You don't need to take off all their fingers. You don't need to break all their bones. When you're interrogating this person, it's the little things that push that can have the character pull back, like try to hold back. Another character I think is a good example, maybe like chaotic evil that is trying to go into lawful evil, is like for those that haven't seen Dexter, that show, um, that's probably like a good barometer of like what an evil, chaotic evil character that's maybe trying to skirt the line of lawful is would fit in a hero campaign, because Dexter at the end of the show is still the protagonist. He's going after the bad guy, killing them, murderers, even though he himself is a murderer. Eric says, "Break all their bones." Sounds like you're speaking from experience. Yes, not because my character. I have yet to really play a fully evil character. I've just been in a party where there's evil characters, and David is her random here. David uh, gave us that experience with his character in our Eberron campaign, where his character would push the boundaries of whenever there was interrogations. We're playing a group of dastardly rogues, sky pirates in Eberron, and his character definitely was one of the ones that was a lot more evil than the rest of real life experience. No, sorry, nope. But he gets to keep their fingernails around me. I agree. David said, I agree. In my current campaign, my character, a wizard, isn't necessarily evil, but his actions of being entwined with loan sharks and his need for learning new and taboo spells causes. Yep. Uh, David here is playing a not necessarily evil character with evil tendency. He's not necessarily full evil, but he's also he's not doing things that are working against the party. Most of the stuff he's doing that's evil, trying to pay off loan sharks and stuff, are evil acts that still progress and are it's for the benefit of the party. So, so yeah. The I'm gonna go into okay, yeah. Your character must work and find common ground with the party. That's another huge reason. Find reasons why your character needs to work with them. And this, in general, this is just if advice for any character. It's just more important for evil characters, but for any character. Obviously, it's a collaborative game. You need to find reasons why your character is going to fit and work with the party. Whether they're good aligned, evil, whatever it is, if they work directly opposed to the party, your party's not going to have a period. So find reasons why the character needs the party to be there. They need to find they need their help to accomplish their end goal, which would be for selfish reasons. If in certain campaigns, like in my group's Inner Strike campaign, where that evil goal would eventually put them in direct opposition to the party, that's something that just needs to be discussed in session zero. Um, just to understand where that this sort of path can go. Obviously, if it's supposed to be like a surprise or anything, that's something you and your DM should discuss. And if you guys are trying to pull a big story thing on the rest of the group and want to keep it private, that's something you and the DM need to discuss to set that up, but also set it up in a way that the other players are not going to take offense and not feel like they're being railroaded or that these players purposely working against them. Um, the other players are super important in this. This happens a lot when players are playing warlocks. It tends to go hand in hand just because of how the patron is set up in the lore for D and into character fantasy. But yeah, it's those things need to find common ground. Period. Um, whether you're good or evil. In terms of playing evil characters, this is like a little extra bit for you guys. I recommend anti-heroes, probably the easiest evil aligned character to play. Um, your character's goals normally align up, but you maybe push it a little too far. You skirt the edge. You're the guy that can do the dirty. You're the person that can do the dirty things that the other characters won't do. So they rely on you. So while the paladin won't, good aligned paladin won't torture, the rogue though on the other hand will torture. So the paladin may turn an eye if the ends justify the means for the end goal, and the that's would be the anti-hero. Another way to play an evil character, a comedic villain. So this is like go to pose directly to what I was saying about not playing a villain, a evil hero. Playing a comedic villain works in the context of playing in a good party because the comedic villain is like your campy Saturday morning villain we do kind of thing where they never can get their end goal. They're always going to be thwarted, and it's always in a funny fashion. And how it is, they work within a good party or a generally good aligned party, neutral party, because they're never going to achieve their goal. They're attempting to scheme. They're not working against the party still in this situation. Just they're never going to get to their point. A good example of like playing of a group of like comedic villains. Of It's Dimension 20's Bloodkeep. Um, let me look it up. It is Dimension 20 Bloodkeep. It is a riff or a Escape from Bloodkeep. That's what it is. It is a play on the Lord of the Rings from the position of the villains of the world on a comedic twist. That is they're very campy. That is a very fun series to watch. A very campy comedic take on Lord of the Rings from the villain's perspective, and they're all comedic villains. They're not they're evil, but they do the Saturday morning campy thing with those characters, and they perfectly fit fine. I think it might be a little bit harder to pull off just if your comedy isn't on point, but or the comedy may not mix well with the group. But it's another character to take with those characters. Okay, and another evil character, and this is one everybody can relate to. This is probably the it's not the edge lord, but it is a variation of the edge lord. You're a bad character with good intentions. Or yeah, you're you're well met like you have good intentions, but the ends justify the means for you. Um uh you're trying to do the right thing but at all cost. So that's a super relatable thing, and that's another easy evil character to get into. Stefan said an also fun archetype leash monster, a character who really just wants to do damage, and a good party has some sort of control over them. Pretty much that. Yeah, the Hulk. The Hulk is another good early versions of the Hulk. I would say for those with a bigger, like another example, the Hulk in early Avengers, pretty much the first Avenger movie, where he's just a monster that's directed at the villain, and it says you go do it. Um, it's the Jekyll and Hyde sort of effect, but it's very much very similar. Very very similar, but that's another like good sort of archetype, evil archetype. Harder ones to play are going to be your Lex Luthors and your Magnetos, the masterminds, the schemers. Um, this is stuff that has to be done with the help of a DM to really get this going, especially if you guys are trying to build a overarching plot. But the biggest thing I want to say when it comes to evil characters before I jump into, do not be afraid for your character to grow and change their alignment as it progresses, especially when it comes to evil characters. Um, that is the one of the great things about collaborative storytelling and role playing, whether it's D&D, Pathfinder, any other game. You can start off as an evil character, but your character comes to learn and trust and care for the other players in the party, where they may change their ways, they may change their views. Um, this is a really good plot to play with, especially if you're a warlock, because well, you entered a pact with a greater deity that isn't necessarily, they're not necessarily always good aligned. And obviously through the trust and relationship with your party, you may not no longer need or want that patron in your life. You saw biggest example would be Critical Role season 2, Ford. He had a pact with a eldritch undersea being, and eventually he got away from his patron and became a paladin for the Wild Mother. Spoilers. But yeah, it's one of those things. You allow room for character growth, and honestly, that's another way to play an evil character. Is like you start off evil, you do evil stuff, but eventually you grow into just being a good person through the help of the other players. Fridays, Eric. One of my wife's characters treated the rest of the party like hired servants. It was great. Just little comments here and there, encouraging them to sacrifice for her. Yep, that's a perfectly good way to play an evil character. The character sees themselves above them, but they cannot remove themselves from them because they need them. That's a great way to play an evil character without necessarily doing many evil things. The biggest thing too is you want your party to feel that this character's evil without necessarily needing to do the evil. So stuff like that, where yeah, they treat them as servants, they treat them as below. Right now in my players Avernus camp, we have kind of multiple, not necessarily multiple evil characters. We have more selfish characters in play this time around. Um, and then we have a lot of good aligned party. One of them is a warlock patron. Um, that he himself is doing selfish acts to work, not necessarily work against the party. He's just having trust issues. So one of the big story arcs that will probably develop with this character is him beginning to learn the party. Um, but it's one of those things he does exactly what some of your suggestions. He talks like he's from a stance of high, like he has the high ground all the times and talks like everybody's beneath him. And that's gone a great way of like establishing that this guy is kind of evil, not necessarily or very selfish and rude, but he still does things to work with the party. Outside of the first few sessions where he pretty much burning hands a couple of the party members, but still. Um, all right. So yeah, hopefully this helps. I want to do a whole other video where I can actually break down and probably discuss my arguments on playing evil characters a lot more. So keep an eye out for that in the future. And I'll probably in a group setting situation where I can bring in other people talk about playing evil characters also. So don't. This is not going to be the only time you see me discussing this topic because it is an interesting topic to talk about, and I want to bring on other content creators. Like I would love to have Eric. I would love to have you on and see if we can get a couple other people that's evil characters and align in the future. Also, yeah, keep an eye on the channel because I probably will have a video on this sometime down the road. Let's get into the last thing. Let's get into your guys' character builds with the last 10 minutes of the stream. We'll make sure everything is pulled up. Okay, so you guys had some very interesting character builds. I expected to see a lot of Warlock builds here. We're going to play the edgiest character. What is your ideal evil hero? So the NPC dropped another really solid build. Character's name is Sarkis of the Blade of the Nine Hells. They are a tiefling, a 14th level Warlock Fiend, and 6th level Paladin Vengeance. Good old 1-2 um, Warlock Paladin build. So the relevant features are all going to be fire based because of the Fiend Warlock, and then stuff like Command, Hold Person, Hunter's Mark, Curl Through Hell, Fiend Warlock ability, and then the Pact of the Blade Warlock feature. So they're going to go with a more melee build for this character. Their backstory: had a bad upbringing. He was abandoned as a child and lived as a general outcast. He was attacked often because people think he was sent from the Nine Hells to terrorize the material plane. He began to have a hatred for the material plane and swore vengeance on it. Eventually, resident of the Nine Hells reached out to him with a contract that offered him immense power if he worked for him. Sarkis signed the contract, was gifted a sword that was forged from the fire of the Nine Hells. He began a new life of slaughter as he worked for this mysterious patron. As he got more powerful, his patron provided more magic and troops. After a year of this, Sarkis traveled to the Nine Hells to train and prepare for the siege that would take place upon the material plane in 20 years. In the Nine Hells, Sarkis actually swore a vengeance against the material plane. After 20 years of training, he's ready to conquer the material. This is like perfect for a villain NPC. As much it is perfect for a perfect good start for a hero, because there's two ways you can go about this. You can go the Archon the Cruel route and take this character to work with the party to eventually get to their own goal, or can eventually just have this character soften up and change their ways because they found that there is value in the material. Okay, Stefan Shaw. Level 20 Spore Druid with a cave lair filled with undead animal minions and living tree ants. The cave is protected as it is a grove of decay. The druid abducts the elderly, the sick, and the poor, takes them to his lair to have his colony devour them, and reanimates the skeleton to become part of his growing defense. So this is a pretty sweet villain. Not gonna lie, Spore Druid was not an expected option, but yeah, it fits within the framework of like potential evil abilities. Especially go with more the decay route. This would be pretty sweet as a villain for like a Golgari, a Ravnica game, like a Golgari Lich. This is what this reminds. Evil character, anyone that uses enchantment spells. That's not far from a lie. That's honest. Robin Yeager. I've got two that I've been thinking about. First, got two. Okay, so first we got a Reborn, a Hex Blade Warlock. And honestly, I don't know what would fit. So they don't really have a background, but a Reborn that's a Hexblade Warlock. Her name is Clue. She was formerly a sentient weapon and evil blade akin to Black Razor, but eventually her last wielder was killed, taken by a wizard who wished to rid the world of her evil, but could not do anything to destroy her. So he came up with an idea and cast true polymorph on her, making into a human, or Reborn. Oh, that's pretty interesting. So an evil weapon that becomes a living being. A lot of ways you can take this. So you could do Reborn, you could do Warforge. Yeah, that is a cool arc. That would be a progression of the character turning good, or maybe turning back to a weapon. Full on Purple Man. Yep. You guys haven't seen Jessica Jones season 1? I recommend that. Is Purple Man. David Tennant is a very, very creepy and evil villain. All right. Then second, they have a changeling that's an Eloquence Bard. And the idea long ago, and I still love it, Nyx is a bard who pretends to be a traveling cleric, praising her god. Her aim is to spread her religion far and wide because, in actuality, the goddess she speaks of is herself. She came up with the idea long ago that she made enough people believe that she was a god who would one day achieve divinity, so she wanders far and wide, spreading belief in her. That would she's vaguely inspired by Ashiok from Magic the Gathering. That would be a great villain as a somebody who's like played a lot of Theros Magic. A lot of Theros gods are created because people begin to believe in them and put faith in them. I know in Forgotten Realms and general fantasy settings, making a person into a god is a lot different. I believe in Forgotten Realms you need a divine spark, but in like stuff like Theros, where a god is pulled into existence because enough people will it to it, this would be one of those things that'd be like a sweet enemy to play against. So the character is going around and having people be starting to believe in it, and that themselves gives it power. That was a large part of the Theros block set with a character called Xenagos, a satyr who becomes the god of rebels. All right, Jinx J, let's go down. Draw Priestess of Loth, who fled the Underdark after realizing she wasn't willing to go along with some of the church's less savory rituals. She started off as a chaotic evil and slowly gained a moral compass as she learned to trust and care for the people around her. And character Jinx said she would be a Conquest Paladin or a Fiend Warlock. Yeah, pretty much we're following the path of Drizzt, except starting off from the part where they're more evil and then they eventually become good. So that, yeah, this is perfect example of doing that. Onya, I do not get the rest. Jalen Smith, current character for Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage, a variant human, soul knife rogue, and lawful evil alignment, telekinetic feat, human variant, dungeon delver feat, 4th level rogue, psychic blade, side bolster neck, all the fun stuff. So his character is Faust Simon Faust, a hired killer from the town of Luskin on Sword Coast, who works for the infamous Interim Guild. He works within the letter of the law to conduct his business transactions. Also includes, but not limited to, collecting charitable donations, loan sharking, redistribution of goods for reasonable prices, smuggling, human resource license, assassination, and occasionally helping small businesses racketeering. He's currently offering his services as an experienced dungeoneer to help scout and bypass traps for his party super dungeon of Undermountain under the pretenses of helping his boss, wizard named Manshun, further his goals of taking over Waterdeep. If successful, Simon might enjoy a cushy job being the kingpin of Undermountain, replacing Xanathar. This is probably one of the great example of how to play an evil character and able to push it but still work with the goals of your party. Great job, Jalen. I like this character a lot. Okay, I haven't played Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. I'm a bad D. Oh, Baldur's Gate 3. Gotta get the new. Alright, Troy Robinson, War Cleric from levels 1 to 5, and then Spore Druid the rest of the way through. A priest of Goddess of Nature and Death. Spore Druids can also go with the Way of Long Death or the Ashes Self. Yep, that's a perfectly reasonable. I actually played a Spore Druid that was also that was a level dip into Arcane Cleric. I was trying to go for a Druid Booming build. That one. For Druids, I can talk about my pros and cons with them another time, but they should be a lot better. Augusto, Valamir. Ooh, thanks, buddy. Thank you. You are now officially a member. You are now a Dungeoneer. Thank you. I will go over what all those stuff means in a bit. Okay. Lamineer is a Wild Hunt Shifter, Circle the Shepherd Druid, Nature Cleric, multiclass. Ooh. Okay. This is interesting because normally you don't associate Circle the Shepherd Druid and Nature Clerics with evil. But it's just because you're summoning the spirits of a good of animals, so it tends to not be evil. Member of the community of shifters and lycanthropes that worship the Beast Lord Malar, believes that nature balances itself with violence and bloodshed. Means with the Beast Lord using bone reading and blood rituals, uses summoning spells to unleash the pack in the name of the god. This is another sweet one. Thank you, Augusto, because yeah, I like that. I like when players take interesting classes that are not normally associated with evil, because Circle the Shepherd Druid is very aligned with good, and obviously nature is good because obviously most people see nature and natural world as good and turning it evil. So yeah, that is pretty sweet. Malar is an came up from time to time. All right, let's go. We're gonna keep going. SWAT Cat, Wood Elf, Way of the Mercy Monk, taking the poison feed and handing flowers imbued with poisons to unsuspecting targets and advising them it will prevent diseases like plague doctors during the Black Plague. The name of the character is Death Lotus. Way of the Mercy Monk is another good one that will that has the ability to be good or evil. It's another strong choice. I like this character. Prophet Isaiah, Yanti Pureblood, Johannes Gallison, Glamour Bard, enthralling performance, mantle, majesty, expertise in deception and insight, charm person, command, disguise, calm emotions, enthrall, gift of gab, fast friends, suggestion, motivational, composition, domination, guys, and memory with the inspiring leader feat. Johannes was sick and tired of being a pawn in the Yanti society, so he decided that he was going to use his human-like appearance to make himself a ruler amongst humans. Came to a human city and began integrating himself with the nobility using this magic enchantment. After being dissatisfied with his progress, Johannes joined a company of adventurers to gain fame and fortune and grow his arcane power. He uses his magic to manipulate and control the minds of others, get others to die and kill for him. His party sees him as one who tries to overcome challenges without violence. But Johannes thrives on power, manipulating, control. Yep, there's the enchanter. Yeah, there's certain tropes obviously you're gonna play into, but yeah, this person is a force manipulating. Okay, we go over one more. Call it for okay. All right, so this one's from Dark Abyss Keeper. They have a Hobgoblin for extra spice, taking objectively the superior but less flavorful Feywild variant. It's actually a really good. I liked all the bonus actions for that. It's a very good version of the Hobgoblin. A Celestial Warlock 4, and whatever suits the story for X. High strength, acceptable charisma, and constitution. Use Hobgoblin weapon proficiency. Take up a glaive. Take Booming Blade and support spells. Make the choice between getting close and setting a Booming Blade or providing extra attacks around your allies without risking yourself. Take Warcaster at 4th purely because heavy weapon Booming Blade and Warcaster is Chef's Kiss. Um, and then you take Pact of the Chain, get Celestial Supervisor. Rising to the rank of Spear in the Hobgoblin military was more a matter of luck than anything else. For on more than one occasion, he was part of a group that achieved great success at terrible cost. After failing upwards, he was eventually given his own squad and tasked to hunt a strange creature in the nearby forest. Not only did this go terribly, changed his life entirely. Now this celestial dictates his actions. Apparently, he is to help and to do good, but Ulrich will follow orders. He may be a spear, but his creature gives orders like a warlord. Gives Ulrich the power to mend wounds. I like this. This is super different, and it can go a lot of different ways because depending on how the DM would play the Celestial Supervisor and which aspect of the Celestials in the greater multiverse will be we focus on, because there are Celestials that are war aligned and pushing to fight all the time may not be necessarily. So again, thank you guys for submitting these. If you guys want to see your answers and see all your character builds and question of the weeks, follow, obviously subscribe on YouTube. Go to the community page; they'll be posted up mostly every Tuesday and Wednesday. Will be posted up. Follow on Instagram also. I post them up there, or join the Dungeoneer Pack Discord. And then yeah, they are posted there. Where I'm now using the new thread feature. Post these so I can archive these and always go back to them. All right, and just a little like, I guess, housekeeping announcements in regards to Patreon and memberships. Ooh, Eric said, before I actually get into that, quick tip: 20% off D&D Beyond for their anniversary sale right now. 20% off is actually a pretty good deal on getting their books. If you haven't got into the digital angle of the game and are just all physical copies, it wouldn't be a bad idea to get into D&D Beyond and getting the 20% off on the books. Jumping into that, at least for now, so you don't have to lug your books around. I have that problem right now. Like lugging my books around every session, so not a bad idea. All right, in terms of just a bit of housekeeping for the for Patreon and memberships. So obviously I changed a bunch of stuff. Now on Patreon there's 4 tiers of 4 tiers you can now support the channel with. Um, and I changed the names obviously. Big thing I changed the names on all of it were mainly to give people more options. Let me pull them up. Sorry, I should have had this ready to go. Um, and mainly, I still kept my $1 and $5 tiers, but I wanted to offer some other options. So I can just show. So yeah, some basic things. So I have a rummager tier, which is my $1. It used to be something goblin. I forgot. Then I added a $3 tier for delver, and then I have an explorer tier, which is the $5 tier that stays the same. And then I also added a big boy $10 tier adventure tier. So the only big difference is the $3 tier. You can also start requesting topics. That's for stuff you want to see in future videos. Um, and the $5 tier pretty much stayed relatively the same, but also you can begin to request actual. You can request specific character abilities. Oh no, this one's the topic request video. Okay, excuse me. Number 5, you can $5 you can start requesting actual topics to be covered, and those will get moved up on the channel when I can actually cover them. There's just some stipulations. Obviously, with the topic requests, you're not going to be able to request character builds directly, but other topics that you want to see covered, maybe other classes, subclass beats, or general player tip topics, and those will take priority and me pushed up. If too many of those get requested, obviously it'll be put to a vote for patrons and supporters on YouTube to decide which one will get picked first. But then I will continue to go down the list. At level 3, I got to remove this, but no, it's I need to figure out. I forgot what I was going to put on here, but yeah, there's going to be another special bit for them that you would get at 5, and at level 10, you get everything from before, but also you can directly request character builds once a month. Which tier gets to play in a game with you? I don't know yet. I actually one thing I think I'm going to work on is community community streams where once a month we can maybe play a game, not necessarily D&D, but maybe like maybe Baldur's Gate or something like that, once a month with players, or just do a Q&A, private Q&A stream. In terms of like setting up D&D games, that's something I need. It's going to take me time to do. I might need to get a DM to help me get that, because it's there's a lot of stuff I'm playing. In terms of YouTube, what's the difference between YouTube and uh and so also YouTube, we're gonna have memberships. So now we have I need to work on badges. Sorry guys, but now there's different tiers for that. It's the same exact thing. Um, there it is going to be the same exact thing. Rummager, Delver, Explorer, and Adventure tiers, all the same prices. You guys will get the same thing. I just have to use the framework of YouTube to do it. The only difference I actually changed was I took away being able to see the video a day ahead compared to everybody else, just because I could not reliably offer that to when I didn't want to keep saying, "Oh yeah, here it is," but this week I can't give it. I'm working the week of to get videos out now. So until I can actually work ahead again, that's when I'll reoffer that. Other than that, yeah, that's pretty much just the big changes on Patreon. Again, thank you guys to all the Patreon supporters. Thank you, Eric, for becoming a Dungeoneer member on. And for those that are interested in doing that and supporting the channel, you can always do that directly on Patreon, Dungeoneers Pack Patreon. You can also become a member here on YouTube. $1, $3, $5, $10, but it's no obligation. The best way, honestly, to support the channel is just like, comment, and subscribe, and watch the videos. That obviously will kick it into the algorithm and let YouTube know that you guys are liking the content and want other people to watch it. You can follow me on other social medias, Dungeoneers Pack YT on Facebook, Dungeoneers Pack on Instagram, and DPack YT on Twitter. I need to be more active. I'm trying to be more active on those platforms. It's just kind of hard. And if you guys haven't checked out this week's video, I did coverage of a 5th edition supplement at the request of Dergory Games. They asked nicely. I wanted to check out their free supplement. Tanares for 5th edition. Yeah, Tanares for 5th edition, a roleplay. They converted their campaign setting for their game, the Arena, the contest, a tabletop miniature game, and are porting that setting into D&D for 5th edition. It is very interesting. It's actually pretty cool. I was very skeptical at first because normally when anybody decides to introduce a new setting, it's like their version of a fantasy setting that that's not necessarily too different from Forgotten Realms. Tanares, on the other hand, I will say is different enough. It is a post-apocalyptic high fantasy setting that normally post-apocalyptic, you think you're going to need to do a lot of survival aspects. But this one takes into account the high power level that generally 5th edition characters are going to have and the high magic power level there. So, again, it's a very interesting change. There's going to be a bunch of new classes. They're adding 4 classes and a bunch of new subclasses. In the video, I go over the 2 that they offered. So definitely go check it out. I have a link in the pinned, so you can check out the video. And then on that video, you can actually directly go to their Kickstarter page. And I also have a link to go check out the samples yourself because the samples are free. Just join the mailing list. You'll get all 3 of them. If you just want to see their player module or their player's handbook, not the player's handbook, excuse me, their adventure module, they have a like 38-page adventure module for free that'll probably take 1 to 2 sessions. You guys can go check that out. If you want to see the player options, just join the mailing list and get in, send it right to you. Other than that, thank you guys again. Next week we're going to talk about reflavoring. I'm going to see if I can get some guests. I like having guests on. Eric, if you're down for next Saturday or next Sunday, excuse me, to join me, and maybe we can get another buddy of ours to come in, and we're going to talk about reflavoring and how necessarily to reflavor and what we like to reflavor in terms of player options. That's what I want to talk about. It was an awesome suggestion I saw on the community page for a suggestion, and it's a topic I hadn't really considered. It's something I do on the channel a lot. And actually, you can expect a little bit more reflavoring as I'm getting back to talking about some subclasses with the Blade Singer coming out this Friday, and I will be going over obviously the mechanics and how to reflavor the class and play it in different ways, and also how to fit them into other 5th editions. Again, thank you guys for watching, and until next time, you guys have a good one.